Archer Lodge work session meeting on this Monday, April 20th, 2026, in these Jeffrey D. Barnes council chambers. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilman Jackson if he would please give our invocation.
Sure. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings that you have provided us. We do ask that you look towards our citizens of the town and just keep a hedge of protection around them. We ask that you help guide us as we go about the town's business and help us to make decisions that are good for the town, and more importantly, that are honoring you. We do ask that you look over our service members. We have quite a few that are from our state, even, that are in harm's way currently, and some others that are headed that way. And just put a hedge of protection around them and look over to them and their families during this time when they're apart from one another. And we just ask for peace and grace in all the things that we do. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 2, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item number 3, new business. Item 3A, I'm going to call on Mr. David. I think he was making a
Yes,
introduction.
sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to provide a brief introduction to Josh Jensen, who is Executive Director for Community and Senior Services of Johnston County. As you may be aware, the organization that he represents provides senior services and transportation services in Johnston County. It is a nonprofit. There are some counties where there's a county department that provides this service. But just as part of my introduction and outreach as a new administrator, I reached out to Josh. We had a great conversation. We've had a couple conversations since then. And I know, council has mentioned in one-on-one meetings as well as with the board retreat about concern for seniors. So I felt like this would be an opportunity to introduce Josh to you and to begin a dialogue on potentially ways that we can partner. So, and also just as a way to provide information about the services they provide. So, Josh, thank you. Welcome to Town of Archer Lodge, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, David. Mr. Mayor, Council, and I'm excited to speak to you tonight. This is a part of the county that, frankly, has been tough to get into with our existing services. We are funded by the Older Americans Act, and we know on day one of our fiscal year exactly how much we have to spend throughout the year. And as I'm sure you can understand, as this county grows, our funding gets strapped. So we're trying to find, and I'm not asking for money, I'll put that right up front. But we're trying to find ways to get over here because of the growth this way and the calls that we're getting. We would like to start to try to establish a presence in this part of the county. One of the examples would be our Meals on Wheels program. We have several sites where we have meals delivered to, and they're shipped off to our clients throughout the county. One of them is in Clayton on Veterans Parkway, in between 70 and the hospital. And we try to keep it within a 5-mile radius so the food temperatures stay proper and just the volunteers in time and all of that. And we're starting to get stretched out beyond that 5-mile radius. So I was looking at a map the other day, and this was shortly after I spoke with David. We have several potential clients, existing clients, that are kind of behind the food line on 42 in Flowers. That's less than 4 miles for us. It's a little over 5 from our existing site. So one of the things I discussed with David was a possibility of maybe setting up a Meals on Wheels distribution site in Archer Lodge to deliver hot meals to clients. Right now, if our existing clients are outside of the zones that we have established, they get on a frozen meal program where we'll give them a supply of 5 days of frozen meals, so they are getting a nutritious meal. And this is one of the areas where we currently can only provide frozen meals. If we were to establish a site here, that would allow us to, let's see, currently in Archer Lodge, we have 15 people receiving frozen meals. But we receive many, many calls, people inquiring about hot meals, but they're not interested in the frozen ones. So we really don't need a lot of space to make this happen. And I've lived 10 minutes from here. I vote in your community center, but I've never obviously explored your kitchen while I'm waiting to vote. We really just need a clean space and room for 2 refrigerator-size warmers and coolers to keep it clean, and then we would provide the staff person. We organize the volunteer drivers, and we set the routes, coordinate everything, and I think that would be a very, very good start to a partnership. I don't think this would happen tomorrow. My fiscal year is July 1st. I would expect possibly something after that. But that was one of the reasons I wanted to come speak to you all, is to just let you know what we're looking at in this part of the county, because I live in Flowers. The growth in the 3 years I've lived there is crazy, and the same thing's happening here. When I try to get to my brother's house in Durham, I don't like going through here during the week, and I know you understand. So that was the main thing. Long-term planning is, we operate 4 centers for active aging, or lack of a better word, senior centers throughout the county. Our Clayton Center is overgrown, and it does not have, I'm not very hopeful that we will find an adequate building within Clayton anytime soon. So I mentioned to David the thought of having a senior center in this area could be very beneficial. I think we could get a lot of the local people, a lot of Flowers people to attend that. Just by means of some numbers, our oldest center is in Selma, and we get on average 50 to 60 people participating per day, whether it's for lunch or just the different activities and things that we offer at that center. The Clayton Center is half the square footage, and we get 125 a day. And a lot of people do come from this area to attend that. So I wanted to put that out there just as a long-term thought as we're looking at ways to partner to support older adults. Those are 2 primary things that are front and center in my mind when I'm looking at this part of the county. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is we also, my other job is operating JCATS. And I'm sure you may be aware that with the 2020 census, the Clayton Flowers area became a small urbanized zone by the FTA, Federal Transportation Administration. That opens up another wave of funding that we've never been exposed to before. And the reason I bring that up, the bulk of it, you're never going to see a difference in what we do when we're bringing people to dialysis or to medical appointments and things. But we currently operate a microtransit service in Smithfield and Selma called Quick Ride. It is basically public transit's version of Uber. We have an app. We have instant pickup within 20 minutes, depending on the location of the vehicles. We run 5 vehicles in a 25 square mile zone right now, Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And with those 5 vehicles, we do 18 to 20,000 rides a year in Smithfield and Selma. What happens now that part of Archer Lodge and Flowers is now urbanized zone, that's going to allow me to operate Quick Ride in this area. So I gave David a couple of maps showing you what the urban area, you won't read the streets, but this is a portion of Archer Lodge that is within the Clayton urbanized zone. And they named it the Clayton urbanized zone because Clayton's the largest town in it, but actually Clayton city limits is only 30% of what the zone, the square mileage of the zone. It's almost 40 square miles. Clayton is 13, 14, somewhere like that. And there is a portion in Archer Lodge. So I will be able to operate Quick Ride within the yellow boundary of Archer Lodge when we get up and running over here. We get a lot of calls from widows, retirees looking to go to Harris Teeter, looking to go to some of the different things that are along 42 and Flowers, and we are unable to provide that service right now, but we will be able to when we start operating over here. We're going to do a soft start, hopefully sometime this summer. I'm still waiting on vehicles. The key differences between this area and Smithfield and Selma is, number one, average income. Tends to be a lower income in Smithfield and Selma. And then number two, you can get so much stuff from the Census Bureau, but there's heat maps that show the number of 2-vehicle households, 1-vehicle households, 0-vehicle households, and those occurrences of 0 and 1 are much, much higher over in Smithfield and Selma where we operate versus over here. So we're not sure what the demand is going to be, but we have enough people calling from this area that we know that we're going to have some sort of presence to provide that public transportation. Right now, it is a $6 fare one-way in our minibuses, regardless if you have 1 people or 6 people. It's a $6 fare one-way. And the funding for that will be supported by the new federal money coming in, and Johnston County and Clayton have agreed to share the match. So we're hoping, I said, vehicles right now are, I'm sure you're dealing with fire trucks and things like that, but it takes a while to get vehicles. They are ordered, they are coming, and we're going to start in some capacity here, hopefully this summer. So at this time, I'd be willing to answer any questions you have of my organization, what we're up to, any thoughts, comments. I would love to hear them.
Do you have drivers already?
So we are the county's, we would need to hire drivers to move out here.
And are those full-time and part-time? Yeah.
Right now, we have around 50 drivers, full-time and part-time, for our existing operations.
And do they need a CDL or no?
No,
No.
not for these. These are mid-size vans. We do have CDL drivers, but they aren't necessary for these buses. And real honestly, just because the paperwork headache is a lot, if we don't do it, 100% of our fleet is ADA accessible, so all of our vehicles have wheelchair lifts.
Have you talked to the community center? You mentioned possibly doing the food service from there.
I haven't spoken to them yet.
Okay, because I don't, we have a good relationship with them, but we
And
don't
David
own that.
mentioned that.
Okay.
I believe you said, didn't you say maybe your predecessor may have had a conversation, or maybe I heard that from someone else?
If she did, it was at least 3 years ago. It was before.
I think it was even longer than that possibly, but yeah. I think there may have been a conversation
Right.
a number of years ago.
He could attend the board meeting or talk to Teresa.
What would be the frequency of use of, if a building such as a community center?
Every day.
Monday through Friday, the meals are cooked, Meals on Wheels of Wake County does the meals for us, packages them, and trucks them to our 6 sites where we distribute. They start arriving between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., and then deliveries usually the 10:30 to 11:30. So by the time that you deliver, they're out and come back, I think we're completely done for the day at the latest by 12:30.
Josh, would you need any dedicated space or?
I would just need a corner of the kitchen for the 2 warmers. And again, I don't know the size of the kitchen, so I don't know if it would work or not. And the warmers are something we would provide.
How about the transportation services? What is needed there other than, it sounds like you're already planning to service this area? Sounds like midsummer, vehicles on order and hiring people. Is that what I understood? Okay.
Right now, I'm looking for a permanent home. I had hopes that I could combine a new senior center with a secure spot to park my vehicles overnight. So far, that hasn't materialized. Commercial property right now is crazy. I am working with the county on possibly locating a site. There's a potential site on, now it blanked on me, Shotwell in 70 that the town of Clayton bought, but I do not have any idea of the time frame on when they're going to allow us to start using that facility.
Okay.
Other than that, the Clayton has allowed me to use the police department parking lot as a short-term solution, so we do have a secure space in the near term. But long-term, I would like to have a permanent space for at least one dispatcher and then for my drivers to do their required paperwork.
Okay.
Mayor, Council, I don't, of course, you know the community better than I do. Besides the community center, I don't know if you are aware of other opportunities, if there's a church or.
Church might be able to help with that too, maybe even a little more readily than because the community center has a lot of activities going on it has some activities going on during that time of day. The church doesn't have quite as many. And, so the church would be a possibility too. Fitting those.
Warmers?
The warmers, now, the warmers actually have to go into something designated as a kitchen, or is it just need to be a clean space?
It has to pass a health department inspection.
Does that have to be under a hood, a restaurant?
No.
Altogether then.
It could sit on a counter.
No, they're full size, they're about this size.
Oh.
They're they're refrigerator size.
The kitchen should.
Well, the problem is going to be that, because it's all volunteer kind of stuff that we do there at the church, and the church doesn't sell anything, that we don't get inspected by the health department. So it's basically, and not saying, well, I'll use my kitchen. It's basically my kitchen, but bigger, right? So I keep my kitchen clean. I don't know if it's health department clean, but, that'd be the possibly a thing there.
I take it would be a one-time inspection, not something that occurs or that's reoccurring?
It's
Just
annual.
a one, oh,
It's
it's
an annual
annual?
inspection.
Okay. But not every month, so.
But they're not, it's making sure the countertops aren't frayed, so it's a cleanable surface. It's, making sure pests and rodents are known, it's just like a restaurant inspection. It's almost the same thing.
I'm sure either you or the county health department will be able to have maybe a pre-inspection and assess the viability of a site.
They could, we'd need to talk to the church about it, but, I don't see where they'd object to an assessment of it, at least if it's, why not? You give them both a try, I think if they could help, I think they'd both be willing to. It's probably that might be more the question, is whether or not they could or not.
How many volunteers do you usually have at a site? I'm hearing the space, but I'm talking, the people that are going to be coming and going, because I think like what was mentioned, there's a lot of activities that go on at the community center that, from a disruption standpoint.
I have the one staff person, and then the number of volunteers that come in depends on the number of routes we're able to establish. We usually like to keep one individual route 10 meals or less, just to make sure that they get there on a timely basis. When we're evaluated by the state, they will sometimes actually ride with the volunteer driver and temp the meal as it gets in the car and when it arrives, to make sure that we're following federal regulations.
Well, I know the church uses the community center, what, is it once a month or twice a month?
Whenever we need it.
No, but I mean, for
The
providing,
senior activity
Caregivers.
morning?
no, not this, there's a meal,
Caregivers, second
Caregivers.
Tuesday of every month.
is that once a month?
Yes.
And it's on the evening, it's in the evening.
No.
No, it's during the day.
It's-
Oh, you
it's-
talking
It's in the
about-
morning, lunch is served.
Oh, that one, okay.
So let me ask you a situation. If have you ever had a situation where you've had a shared location? The two entities we're discussing are right across the street from one another. And if there was a schedule, would it bother you to have a shared, a co-location? On certain weeks you've got this, this spot, and certain weeks you have the other, and it would just be across the street from one another. I know that may not be ideal, but
As long as we can move the warmers without damaging them, because they're not light.
That would be a challenge, because you can't get them downstairs. There's no ramp, there's no elevator.
that would be a challenge to the
That'd be stairs, so.
The one thing that I want to make sure that you as director understand that we don't own that community property, that community center out there. We look after it, but we don't own it, but from day one it was set up that, like, they have a lot of overflow funeral stuff, and you don't know about till the last, 2 or 3 days.
So what we do with Harrison Center that's in Selma is if we know of an event coming, even if it's short, even if it's a day or two notice, we provide 2 meals of the day before the event, and then we're closed. We do that, our senior center in Selma is also a voting site. So the day before the election, we send out an extra meal so those, so that people can have that meal on the Tuesday as well. And we plan around those big ticket things.
And then for early voting, do you send frozen meals for a couple of weeks during early voting? Yeah, okay,
Although it's usually not as busy,
yeah.
they don't have as big of a problem during early voting, but if it's going to be a little busier, then yeah, we have the ability with a little bit of notice to send out the 5-day packs.
Because I know with the early voting, I think they have to have control of that space and, they have to keep it locked up.
Well, it's technically, the voting is actually next door, but the
It's-
parking.
At the community,
For Selma,
we're
it's
talking
different.
about,
Houston, Selma.
I'm
They
talking
don't
about Selma.
vote there in
Yeah.
Selma.
for our community center, it'd be right where you need to be.
I vote here.
Okay. Gotcha, yep, you said that.
well, good food for thought. Anybody else have any more questions about it?
Well, I don't have a question, but I mean, I would encourage you to go over and talk to the community center president, Dean Castleberry, or Teresa Purvis, who helps run the facility there. And you've met obstacles before. There may be obstacles there that you can work around. And we just have to figure out what the obstacles are.
I prefer to find solutions, so.
There you go.
Josh, I can help you get in touch with those folks,
Appreciate that.
so.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your
Thanks
time.
coming out.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3B, overview of comprehensive land use plan update. Mr. Jason?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We were scheduled to have our planning board final review of the comprehensive land use plan update last Wednesday. That did not happen. So we are currently moving forward to have that done on the 28th so that we can still have our public hearing when we last discussed it on May 6th, I believe. Whatever that,
May 4th.
4th? Okay.
May 4th be with you, yeah.
So we're still on schedule as far as you all are concerned. There have been a number of changes made to the plan that we have. We've also gotten a voiceover review up on our YouTube page that you can share with your constituents and the public if they would like to have, something that's read out to them so they can more easily follow along instead of scanning through a massive document looking for important things. One thing to mention with some of the revisions is we had a lot of discussion on boundaries and ETJ and certain things to remove, such as pursuing sewer service and higher density zoning codes. A lot of that has been removed from the comprehensive land use plan, and on the ETJ stuff with the boundaries, those have been adjusted to account for our comments. We have maps here that show that, and then it will also be updated in the final land use plan update draft that you all will receive shortly. They're still making some final adjustments, but we'll have that shortly.
You mentioned that the pursuit of sanitary sewer was eliminated, because reading it, it says reduce the goals of the pursuit of sanitary sewer service.
Maybe
It was-
eliminated was
it
the
was-
wrong word.
it-
It
so
might have
it's-
been softened as language.
Because that, well, I remember the planning board recommendation was not to pursue water or sewer, and I thought we all pretty much agreed with that. So I guess I was expecting it wouldn't be referenced at all, since it would be eliminated and not reduced.
Yeah, I can't speak to Chad's thinking behind that, but he had an idea that it shouldn't be removed entirely and that it should still be a part of it. And if when that comes to planning board, and if it comes before you all and you still want it fully removed, that's your volition.
So you don't know what his reason was, even though that's what we asked for?
Well, I'm assuming that, just as, his professional due diligence, that it would be an issue that would need to be addressed in some form or fashion, at least brought it to the attention, and then let the community decide if it wants to pursue it or not.
That who decided?
The community, the board decide. But, I can't speak for him. I don't want to put words in his mouth or mine. But, I think, he would have a responsibility professionally to at least mention the concept of it, and then let the board decide how it wanted to pursue. But I think the language in there acknowledges that, it's not something that the planning board or the council has advocated for.
Could we get a copy of the updated maps sent to all council members and the language that was softened? I'd like to see language before and after.
It should be up on the town website, the new one.
That's nice. Can we get it emailed, please?
Oh, sure.
I'd like it emailed to all council members.
You
And
want emails of the old draft and the new?
just what was changed. If we could highlight what was changed.
Okay.
But did you say he's still working on things, so it's not currently ready?
Just some final tweaks
Okay.
here and there with mostly the boundaries on the maps, because there were some properties in between some of the ETJ, and he was talking about reducing some of our 1 mile limit in certain areas and extending it beyond that in others, which we're allowed to do statutorily, just in ways that made sense, taking into consideration the comments.
So going forward, this will come back on May 4th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we said we were going to vote on it in June? That's what we said at the last council meeting.
Because we were going to do the
I'd like to push it
public-
out a little bit more.
We were going to do the public hearing separate.
Well, we're going to do that in May or
The public
June.
hearing is the same night as is May 4th.
The public
Right.
hearing has already been advertised for May 6th. It's already been paid to be put in the newspaper.
Yeah,
That's the directive we received
Yeah,
from
we
you.
said we were going to do the public hearing in June, or no, May,
Correct.
and that we'd vote on it in June, but I'd like.
May 4th.
Make board.
Yes.
It's
That- yeah,
April
the council
6th,
meeting.
April 6th, May 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep that schedule, but push back the actual vote to probably July now, just to give us more time. Because this is going to be a big discussion once we actually get to the final changes.
I mean, I think that would be council's prerogative after the public hearing to,
Well, I'm not going to vote on it at the public hearing.
well, no, I'm saying, but they can decide, the council as a body can decide when they would want to vote on it after the public hearing in May.
I'm just trying to let staff know that
Well, especially we're going to be,
June, I'm not going to vote on it.
we're going to be middle of budget. It's going to be crunch time for
Real
budget.
quick, I'll remind everybody that if a motion is made at the June meeting and is seconded, there will be a vote. So if you decide not to vote, that is your prerogative. But if a motion is made and seconded, we have to have a vote.
Well, I can make a motion to push it to July 1st.
You can. So
I prefer not to.
I understand, but I'm just procedurally, if we have a motion and a second, there has to be a vote. So, and if you don't vote, it's a yes vote. So just keep that in the back of everybody's mind. So,
Is Chad planning to come to any more meetings?
He will be at the planning board meeting presenting to them, and then he will also be at the May meeting to
Okay.
present to you all.
So,
And that's April 28th.
Yes.
so I agree with I think we need to push it. However, we need to do it, if it's in a motion on the night, that night or whatever, but I think we're gonna have our hands full with the budget for a little bit, and this, I think, will be,
Distraction.
yeah, I think that's a good word for it. I think would be, we need to get the budget behind us, and because I think this one is, we talk a lot about things when we're up here anyway, and I think this one will, I think it'd eat up a lot of time in a meeting. So however, we've got to do it. I think we need to push it back a little bit.
I agree.
Let's make a motion.
Well, this is a work session tonight.
We're not doing that tonight. All right, moving ahead. 3C, organization cultural discussion. Mr. David?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Felt like this would be an appropriate time, with me and my new role as town administrator, now that I've got 2.5 months under my belt. And also the fact that, we've got 2 new council members as well. Maybe just have a brief discussion on organizational culture and how that can be impactful in a positive way. So, want to quote ICMA, the International City County Managers Association, and they state that a positive organizational culture is a secret sauce for high-performing, directly impacting employee engagement, talent retention, and service delivery. It builds a resilient fabric that enables local governments to thrive, fostering innovation, trust, and ethical behavior through strong leadership. So we both have responsibility. I, as town administrator, and you, as elected body, have responsibility to, develop and nurture a positive organizational culture. And some key elements that are a part of a positive, high-performing culture include talent, attraction and retention, performance and productivity, trust and collaboration, innovation and safety, ethical tone at the top, and a shared purpose. So just in general, words matter, actions matter, and the way we make, people feel, and that goes with, making the community feel, citizens feel, each other feel, and so forth. Essentially, a positive culture is a deliberate daily effort to create a workplace where employees and citizens feel supported, allowing for continuous improvement and ability to serve the public effectively. So first of all, city manager, town administrator has responsibility to help establish that positive culture by acting as a primary role model, setting the tone from the top through transparent communication, ethical leadership, and consistent value-driven behavior. So, particularly communication is something that I've been really trying to focus on during my initial tenure. And some of the roles that I have as administrator in that includes, setting the tone, defining and communicating values, fostering open communication, empowering staff and building trust, recognizing and rewarding performance, and navigating change and innovation. And then you, as we have in this shared responsibility. Town council is critical to shaping, sustaining, and driving the organizational culture of the local government, moving it from, a mere administrative body to a high-performing, citizen-focused institution. So there's some overlap, but certainly part of your role as council includes also setting the tone, but also really bringing together a vision, modeling civility and respect, promoting a no-blame environment, and fostering accountability and professionalism. Next slide, and next slide. All right, so, here's a chart showing the impact of organizational culture on organizational success. And you see the different areas of impact. And as far as a positive organizational culture versus dysfunctional. A positive organizational culture impacts organization in a lot of different ways. We talked about employee retention. A positive culture helps establish a higher retention and job satisfaction level with innovation and encourages creativity and agility in service delivery. Establishes public trust, builds citizen confidence and community engagement, and operational efficiency, high-performing teams, and shared success. And so I know we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, but just wanted to broach this subject with you, provide this information to you, and if you so desire, just have some discussion about the attributes of organizational culture that you would like to strive for. So, any thoughts that you have about developing positive organizational culture?
Mayor, call to question. If you're not, Mayor,
I hear you.
call
I'm
to
listening.
question. If we're not hiring anyone at this time, or there are no issues to discuss, our personnel policy covers ethics and character and respect and all those things. And it's budget season and we have a lot on the agenda. So we've discussed these things in the past, and I think that we can move forward if there's an agreement with that to the other issues on the agenda.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
So I think I'm gonna agree with Frankie a bit. We've talked, there's been some, how can I say it? There's been some differences of opinion between the staff and the council. And we're aware of that. And one of the things further on tonight is a result of that. And that's not the right way of saying it. The things that we want to do, I don't think they're not performance issues. We've been, well, I'm not going to get much further into it, but I think that we need to talk about what's further on in the agenda. That's my opinion, but.
I'm fine with doing that.
Okay, any further questions or comments? All right, item 3D, exploration of an ATM on town property.
So, Mayor and Council, this item I've shared with you individually and collectively, but I wanted to share in a meeting or work session as well. So, as you're aware, currently there is no automated teller machine available 24 hours a day in the town of Archer Lodge. Previously, there was a state employees credit union ATM at a local convenience store, but it was removed. One benefit, certainly not trying to suggest preference of one institution over another, but certainly one benefit of the credit union is that not only does it not charge its own customers, but it doesn't charge non-credit union customers as well. Some of the other banks may charge their own customers for it, but the credit union does not. So, staff met with State Employees Credit Union representatives in March. They are certainly interested in the possible location of an ATM here in town. And so we talked about the possibility of placement of ATM actually on town property. If you look at the map there. So there's one parcel here that is the entire parcel, and so you've got where the town hall is, veterans, and then the multipurpose field. And then on the other side of the multipurpose field, there's a pecan tree and a little bit of somewhat of a parking area. It's not fully defined, but that's where they are interested in doing that, and it would make sense for the community as well. So we've continued the conversation. I wanted to just kind of broach the subject to you. If the town decides to move forward with consideration of a lease, then that was something that would have to be advertised to the public, and there would be a 30-day public notice requirement for that. There is, so there would be no public hearing, but it's a public notification, and then council could consider a lease. The going rate for ATM location is about $350 a month. So there could be some revenue that could come to the town if the town looked at that. And, I know that the town in the past looked at possibly doing some development here as far as improved parking. We're currently looking at possibility of doing maybe a lower, less impact, less costly opportunity instead of a paved gravel parking lot. And so we're getting some estimates there. I think the credit union would be willing to partner in that, but they wouldn't cover the full cost of the entire parking area. I did talk with them last week. So there is substantial cost with the location of a new ATM. It's 6 figures, so it's not inconsequential. It is a lot of investment, and it's not a money-making venture for them. It's about providing service, and so they did suggest that if the town were willing to maybe consider not taking rent for several years, that might give them, entice the organization to place an ATM there. So it's not a definitive thing that they're ready to sign on the dotted line, but it's something they're evaluating. And currently they are in the process of changing out all their ATMs across the state of North Carolina. I believe it's about 1,200 ATMs, so it's a lot. They are moving fairly quickly now, but I think it's still probably at least another year, maybe more, before they finish that, maybe a year and a half. So if the town council wanted to pursue it, it would still take some time probably to get an ATM constructed and operational. But just wanted to broach this subject with you in a public meeting and see if you had any questions or concerns.
Just so we'll know, there are 2 ATM machines in Archie Lodge now.
Right, and I believe what I mentioned before is I don't believe that they're available 24 hours a day, whereas this would be available 24 hours a day.
But there is one down at the food line that's.
At Clayton, yeah.
Across from the school.
Yeah, that's Clayton, and they're aware of that. They also have one at
Flowers.
At Flowers.
Why did they take the one away from Archer Lodge Express?
I believe it was at the request of the property owner.
Yeah.
'Cause
And I believe they have one inside at the convenience store now.
They do.
So I certainly don't want to speak for the property owner, but
They're open from 6 to 10 at night.
So I I sort of don't really see a need for it. I guess what got the conversation going to begin with, as far as pursuing this?
Again, it was part of, some of the input I had in some of my initial conversations with council and staff and, comments that, we did not have an ATM available 24/7 in town, but that might be something that citizens would appreciate.
We really went round and round with, I don't know how many options on that lot for a parking lot, and because of the environmental restrictions, it just wasn't, the expense, it wasn't feasible to do it.
According to what the lease says,
Well, what the
we were gonna
permit,
be in the parking spaces.
it wasn't gonna be worthworthwhile to spend the money, you weren't gonna get anything out of
And
it.
I believe that was with a paved parking lot, but with a gravel parking lot, there's more opportunity to address it without impacting the wells and without increasing the cost.
The stream.
There's a lot of functions at the community center, concession stands, et cetera, throughout the year too, where having the availability of an ATM to get cash would benefit, those endeavors. I know a lot of school fundraisers, scout fundraisers, community center fundraisers, athletic organization fundraisers. So it is something to consider, interesting location for that.
And again, it could potentially be a revenue source, that's small, but a revenue source for the town.
How long are they talking about? Not getting any kickback out of it.
Well, I think what they were suggesting, if the town was willing to consider maybe 3 years without a payment for lease.
And would they be willing to do all the infrastructure improvements? Because that's what worries me, is we're going to go 3 years with nothing back, but we're going to have to put some money in to set up an infrastructure for it to come.
Yeah, because even if the minimum cost is, you said 6 figures, even if the minimum was $100,000, $350 in a year is $4,200, so you're looking at less than $15,000.
So what I was saying for the 6 figures was their cost, not to make it into a gravel parking lot. That would be their cost to put an ATM machine, not the town's cost.
If
We're working on getting estimates for what it would cost to put gravel there. So we're working on that now.
if they're willing to foot the cost to put it in, I think the benefit, if we're not paying for it to be put in, then I think the benefit for the community is a good benefit.
Again, I can't speak for them. I think based on our prior conversations, when we went out to the property and what we had tentatively talked about was putting gravel over the entire spot, they're certainly willing to participate. But if we're trying to get, 20 spaces in a gravel parking lot to benefit the multipurpose, it's hard for them to justify that. But certainly they would pay for, improvements on that section. So they would, they have to have X number of parking spaces, for the ATM machine. They would apply for that or certainly pay for that. But, we would probably have some cost in gravel for the other part of the parking lot that would benefit the town.
I'm trying to remember the lighting at night over there. Would they need an additional pole, and then who would pay the electricity bill?
So we've talked with they've got an engineer looking at that, but I think if there's any light that they would require, then that would be on them.
Oh, okay.
As long as to me, financially, as long as they pay for what they want, I don't expect them to pay for what we want.
That's the understanding.
And I don't have any problem, and I know for me, I sure missed the one that was at C.E. Barnes's.
That was used rather frequently.
I used it quite a bit.
And also, benefit for July 4th and other community events as well. So. Any other questions, comments?
All right, item 3E, legislative agenda for Orchard Lodge.
So Mayor, Council, at the February 16th budget retreat, Council participated in a start, stop, and continue exercise to identify programs and initiatives it would like to prioritize. And one of the items prioritized was the development of a legislative agenda, including identifying projects that are ready to go when grants or funding becomes available. There are some other park-related planned improvements remaining that we don't anticipate being able to have funds available through grant funds. And so, those certainly could be, considered for, trying to get shovel-ready projects together and ready for grant opportunities or legislative funding. In conversation with legislators, don't anticipate in a short session that there's going to be a whole lot of opportunity for direct funding from the legislators this year. But what they suggested was to go ahead and, get your wish list together now for next year so that you can be, ready to go next year. So that's why we're bringing this before you at this time. So, just some other ideas that, maybe would like to consider, playground equipment across from the current park, outdoor classroom area or stage, complete concrete walking trail around the multipurpose field, bullpen, batting cage, Wi-Fi extension, disc golf playing field. Those are some things for phase 1 and phase 2. West side parcel, 3 picnic shelters to match the grain bin, outdoor fitness equipment, public safety crosswalk, concrete walking trail to connect with Vincent Park subdivision to match phase 1. And some of the additional items that have been suggested in recent weeks for potential projects include funding for land banking, additional parkland, funding for an additional recreation building, funding for a senior center to be used as a nutrition site and possibly exercising and programming. And so just, want to present those items and then just, ask council are there other potential funding requests that you would like to consider for legislative prioritization. And then just additionally, besides funding requests, there may be issues or matters that you would like to request particular attention to by our legislative delegation. There's certain advocacy for certain bills that, the North Carolina League of Municipalities develops its legislative agenda. And so I've got that sample for you, as well as some sample legislative agendas for the town of Apex, city of Charlotte, and city of Winston-Salem. So don't want to go through those in detail. You've got those in your packet, but just kind of wanted to have some discussion about items that you would like to try to craft and include in a legislative agenda.
Well, we have certainly benefited from having projects on the shelf prior. A lot of the grant money that we have received is in direct correlation to having those projects identified well in advance and making preparations. Potentially a minimal cost, to have preparations made in waiting for, potential funding. But that has worked out well for us in the past.
Are there certain items mentioned tonight, or are there other items that you would like to focus on with that legislative ask? I mean, it's beneficial to have that elevator speech ready to go and canned. So what items would you like to see staff work on as in the development of a legislative agenda for your consideration at a future meeting?
I'd be more interested in additional features at the current park and not pursuing new park.
Ben, flip back to that slide if you don't mind. There we go.
And I thought the disc golf was already in the works. Am I
So we-
confusing that with something else?
The town has received a grant from the Visitors Bureau, right? For the disc golf baskets, I believe.
I'm unsure about which one.
But we got a grant for the disc golf baskets. So, so we do have those. We've received those. They're on site. You know, and as we're working through, you know, our timetable and priorities, you know, there are other things that are taking priority, like the building for Public Works, and pickleball, and there certainly have been some, you know, additional costs that have been incurred, and so, Kim, I don't know if you can speak to it, but I'm not sure, I believe we're not sure we're going to have enough money to do some of the site work and other investment that would be required for disc golf. We certainly want to try to do our due diligence, but it's still some things up in the air. But I think once we get the bids on the building, we may have a little bit more information. But Kim, is there anything else you can add?
I wasn't out there, so I'm gonna let Jason talk, but it's my understanding it's some, as far as the playing field, I think it's something through the woods or something that's gotta be clearing done.
Yeah.
Hello. So the majority of the holes for the disc golf course, we're planning to have at least 9, which would be half of a normal course. The majority of that will go through the wooded part of the park. So very close to the baseball fields, that section of the woods is really nasty, very overgrown, a lot of thorns, a lot of stuff you don't want to be anywhere near, and a lot of stuff that would be really hard and difficult to clear manually, require a lot of time and effort. So the most straightforward option that we were looking at is to hire someone with a bush hog to go through there for a couple hours, clear out all the area that we needed, large scale, and then have a team of either volunteers or Blake and Marcus, when they had time, and volunteers to go through and clean up the rest of the holes to make it to finish out the course. And then the one other thing, 2 other things that we would probably need funding for is either the tee pads, which you can do in various levels of expense. But that's down the road. And then also tee signs, which Chris believes that he might be able to get grants in order to do that. But those are just a couple of the things. The big barrier right now is the clearing of all the brush underneath.
Well, a number of those items, that screen keeps going in and out, but a number of those items that were shown have been things that we've talked about in the past, and you know, of having on either phase 1, phase 2, or the west parcel. So I certainly like the idea of the public safety crosswalk. I've had to cross that on event days so far, and we've had really good turnouts, and it looks like our turnouts have been pretty strong with the start of ball season.
Yes, sir, and we're talking with DOT about pursuing a grant for the crosswalk itself. The challenge is that we would need to have our sidewalk or walkway up to the right-of-way, which it is not currently. So we would need to do some additional sidewalk or walkway construction to meet. Even if we got a 100% grant from DOT, we would still need some work on our side.
Well, I know we had applied for a grant previous for additional playground equipment, and so that's one thing you showed first off on phase 1 and 2. And completion of the concrete walking trail, and would be a nice addition. We've got a very nice walking trail as it is, but Particularly if we could get information, where we could keep on the shelf, looking for funding opportunities. I think that would be a great one. I know bullpen and batting cage has been one that I've heard from the Johnson County Little League Association. That's something they would love to see happen one day. I know there could be some temporary options there, but to have one in place would be another really nice to have if we could find the funding.
Any other thoughts about shovel-ready projects?
I like those picnic shelter idea, matching the grain bin. I think, that's one that we had on a very early conceptual on the west side parcel. Gives people across the road options, to have a picnic or a birthday party or a smaller gathering, if you will, particularly if the other side of the road is being utilized for sports. That would be a nice addition. I know the outdoor fitness equipment, I've seen that at Selma and other places. That seems to be catching on a lot. That would be, and I would think, Mr. Chris isn't here tonight, but I would think there would be some grant opportunities for that. We do have, on that last one, concrete walking trail to connect the Vincent Park subdivision to match phase one. I know we do have that right of way, and that we could utilize. That would be a nice force multiplier so far as an added distance on a walking trail that could be utilized.
And I think that would probably play well if we end up extending some sidewalk for the crosswalk itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a natural extension of that as well. So they would complement those two projects.
I really don't see anything on that list that I would be opposed to, to gather information, to have it at the ready, should we have an opportunity at grant funding.
And then as far as, other issues or bills, are there any issues or bills relating to the league or advocacy from, other communities or anything that you have that is on your heart? That is there any issue that you would like for staff to work on as far as developing an advocacy agenda for the council's consideration?
So part of, one of the things that you've got up there is talking about the legislative review of property taxes and all, which it generally stated, I think they should not be terribly involved in the things that we do. However, there is one particular thing that I wish, if we get the chance to tell them, that would take away from property tax for us is every state around North Carolina, if you have veterans that are 100% disabled, they are 100% exempt from property tax. And I don't know why North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Virginia can do it. Why can't we? Other than that, I'd like them to stay. Things like that, I'd like them to not be part of our business.
I don't know. I would like to see them make into law some sort of restrictions on the amount property taxes can be raised.
Well, maybe
There needs to
if
be
it's
some
excessive.
constraints or something, not that it's gotten kind of out of control. I think there needs to be some oversight.
But that's what the committee is working on.
Yeah. But I mean, if we did a resolution, like, I agree with what you're saying with the disabled veterans, but I wouldn't want to get into what this sample does. It's really saying, hey, let the towns do what they want to. I think there needs to be some oversight and some limitations.
And I do apologize for the issues with the technology tonight. We did have technical assistance today trying to get it fixed, and we thought it was fixed. So apologies for the issues tonight.
Seems to be working now.
Well, still bleeping a little bit.
Oh, is it?
At least on this one. This display is not working great.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, Mayor, Council, we can move on to the next item.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about a while ago on the parks and stuff like that, things that we could do.
On the what? I'm sorry?
Parks.
Parks
Okay.
down there and running that right of way, that sidewalk. Do these people on Castleberry Road know this?
Do the people of Castleberry Road know that
We have a right of way for that sidewalk?
I can't confirm or deny what
I mean,
people may know?
there's one guy just tripled the size of his house on Castleberry Road, and they just poured the concrete Friday afternoon. The whole thing, this 3-car garage on the right-hand side now. And they've concreted the driveway, and somebody's planted trees on the dam of that pond where they were going to use to go across that part of, to go across that right beside the road, because it's so mushy, marshy right there. But I just wanted do these people know that they can come in there and put that right of way in there?
And I guess Castleberry Road, the right-of-way would be DOT's right-of-way, not the town. So that would be something that, DOT would need to address. As far as the dam, I'm not sure about the dam. Is that, I'm assuming the town, the town doesn't have, it's probably just the HOA there. Yeah.
DOT does not like to have dams in their right of way.
Yeah.
From the liability standpoint, they avoid that.
Yeah. I got in line at Vincent Ridge, there beside the park, tonight coming to work. I sit on Castleberry Road 25 minutes tonight.
That's crazy.
So, I got to start running at 5 o'clock to come to work.
So if there's nothing else, Mayor, would you
let's-
like for me to move on to the next item?
Move along to 3F, please.
All right, so the next item, town mission statement. So just wanted to bring this to your attention and make sure that we've got clarity as far as staff and my understanding. So you got a little information in your packet about what a mission statement is. A mission statement explains what an organization does, describes how you do it, captures your why, and brings it all together. A town's mission statements and core values define a municipality's purpose. Some examples of a mission statement include the town of Apex provide exceptional public service that fosters opportunity for the individual and community to live, thrive, and reach their peak. City of Wilson to create an environment that continuously improves the delivery of and quality of services to every citizen. So the town of Archer Lodge adopted the 2030 Comprehensive Land Use Plan on March 9th, 2015. And there's a mission statement that was a part of that document, and you've got that listed in your agenda packet. It states, the town of Archer Lodge is a community that honors and embraces its rich cultural heritage and past, pursues healthy living in the present, and looks for the opportunities of molding future growth into the town's core values. Archer Lodge is home to many natural resources and open agricultural land. With an eye toward planning future growth, the town will protect these resources. So, in researching this with staff, there appears to be no documentation in the March 9th minutes, March 9th, 2015 minutes, where the mission statement that I just read was voted upon separately as the town's official mission statement. It appears that this was probably a mission statement just for the comprehensive land use plan, and then potentially just kind of assumed that it was going to be the mission statement for the town as well in general. So just reached out to Kim Nelson of the UNC School of Government about adopting a mission statement, and she stated that the mission statement is usually developed as part of a strategic plan process. I do think it's great when the strategic plans and land use plans are integrated with one another, but she suggests that the mission statement should be voted upon by the board. So it doesn't appear that that was done specifically as an official mission statement. Her personal and professional opinions suggested that the mission statement is also a little bit long and is somewhat future sounding, and she suggested the mission statement should be about the present. Vision statement should be about the future. So again, at the 2030 comp plan, there was a mission statement and vision statement. I think they were kind of integrated for the land use plan. But I think it may be beneficial for the town to develop core values and a concise, clear mission statement. And so just ask you to receive this information tonight and provide any feedback, and then consider potentially funding a strategic planning process in the upcoming budget to include the development of town mission statement and core values. So we've talked about a strategic plan in the past, and so this just, I think, kind of supports that conversation. So, any questions or comments?
Could you send us our current vision statement as well?
There's a vision statement that was addressed in the comprehensive land use plan, the 2030 plan. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, because I'd like her comment about mission statements being the present and vision for the future.
Right.
So I guess in looking at the mission, I'd kind of like to see
Sure.
the vision at the same time, just to separate those two goals.
Be happy to, and I think we actually have several vision statements. One that was from the 2030 comprehensive land use plan, one that was in the bike and pedestrian plan, one that was in the comprehensive recreation plan, and then there's a new vision statement that's in the draft land use plan. So we can certainly send you all four of those.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, unless there's any more questions or comments, move along to item 3G.
Mayor and Council, so got some background information about East Wake TV. As you're aware, it's a partnership between the towns of Archer Lodge, Knightdale, Rollsville, Wendell, and Zebulon, and also provides additional service to Garner and, let's see, one other town as well. But it's not the exact same level of service. So at the September 8th, 2025 council meeting, council approved a resolution to videotape and stream council meetings through the PEG Media Partners East Wake TV. The videotaping of town council meetings began on October 20th of 2025, and streaming began on the following month in November. So revenue to operate East Wake TV comes from a portion of the state shared sales tax on video programming and telecommunications services. The town of Archer Lodge receives its share of that state PEG funding and passes along to PEG Media Partners and East Wake TV. So this in effect is a pass-through for the town. There was some initial investment that the town provided in some cabling, a one-time cabling fee to set the room up. But the other equipment, like the server and cameras, were provided by East Wake TV. And the staffing for our two meetings per month, is done as part of the agreement. So we don't pay for those two meetings a month. If we have a third meeting, such as the planning board, then if we have East Wake TV do it, then there would be potentially some cost. If we can do a third meeting by staff, and there may not be as direct cost, but there may be some additional costs through comp time or other costs as well. And so there was suggestion made at the last meeting that there was some interest in having planning board meetings videotaped and streamed, and possibility of town staff providing some level of that staffing. And so just wanted to provide options to council, and since the council passed a resolution back in the fall specifically to, authorize the videotaping of the council meetings only. Just wanted to bring this back up and provide information about the relationship we have with East Wake TV and potential cost. So we reached out to Gary McConkey, the studio director for East Wake TV, and he said that Rollsville pays about $800 a year for them to staff the planning board meetings. And I would expect that would probably a not to exceed cost. I don't think it would probably be that much if we did it, because there are some months where we don't have two council meetings or a meeting and a work session. And so in those months, if there was a planning board meeting in those months, that planning board meeting would be staffed at no additional cost. And then, the planning board doesn't meet every month. So, obviously there would be no cost in those meetings. So just wanted to bring this information to you, and we've asked you to receive it and provide any feedback that you may have about videotaping and streaming planning board meetings and staffing thereof. And just want to mention as well, so we've got the interlocal agreement for East Wake TV, and that runs through June of this year. So we'll be bringing the renewal of that to you before June 30th.
So worst case scenario, an additional $800 above and beyond the pass-through amount that we get from the state.
Right.
Okay.
Well, actually, like you said, less than that, because our planning board does not meet that often. And I broke out my calculator, 800 divided by 12 is 66, so we wouldn't even be looking at probably a couple $100.
Well, that's why I said worst case scenario, and that's not bad. Worst case scenario of $800 is not terrible, and it, should be less.
How much is the total pass-through amount from the state? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
It varies every year. We have to wait to get it.
I think down at the bottom, it was in 24-25, Archer Lodge received $77,201 in PEG funding and passed this funding to PEG Partners Media.
So I know it's pass-through money, but I would like for us to make sure we're getting our money's worth from them.
Sure. And, they are so all the town managers, administrators serve on a board of directors for East Wake TV. And we typically meet a couple times a year. So I attended one meeting, I guess about a month, 6 weeks ago. And so we review the financials and so forth. And they do have a good amount of reserves, so that, so they, just like a town or a county, they have reserves to help address, critical needs that come up. And so, that is managed and that's reviewed by, all the towns that are partners, all the town managers. So I'll be glad to provide you the minutes of those meetings if you'd like, or, financial statements from East Wake TV.
They're filming a number of functions that we have outside of, town meetings as well throughout the year. Done a pretty good job with those over the years.
I know they've done, opening day for, Little League. They've done July 4th, I believe, Mayor, is that right?
They have. The
So-
Christmas parade.
Christmas parade.
They've done that.
So it's been a good partnership where, again, I would estimate, based on prior experience, the equipment we've got that was provided was probably in excess of, if it's new, $50,000. So, and if East Wake TV ceases to exist for whatever reason, then the equipment that's here stays here.
Garner or Clayton several years ago, and I think maybe, I can't remember which one, but they opted to kind of do something different than what we do. They kind of created their own public affairs or whatever.
Right, so they're still partners, but they've got their own public affairs, they staff it themselves. And so, there is a relationship there, where they manage, some things for the towns, but the staffing is done by town. But they have, dedicated staff that does that, and the PEG money that, they get reimbursed from East Wake TV through that. But it's not, they don't get fully reimbursed.
Right.
There's some local costs that they incur that we do not incur.
That was one of the things that I remember talking to somebody, from Garner, yeah. It wasn't it Garner that did that?
Garner Clayton, yes, sir.
It's been a couple
Yeah.
of years ago that, and it was, for them, it was a not insignificant number for them to choose to do that.
But, those are towns that have typically a public information officer. And, they've got additional IT staff that helps with, the technical expertise. But I know, the studio in Nightdale is available to us as a partner. There may be some cost in there, but I know Zebulon, for instance, uses that studio quite a bit to tape interviews with for the mayor's show, and any spots, any snippets that they do to promote town events and services. So that is something that's available to us as well.
All the area footage of the town park has been done by them, by drones.
And, a lot of the stuff that, they do, we've got on our website, on our social media, and even the recordings for this, they're the ones that put it on YouTube, correct, Ben? So that's kind of a seamless process that, town staff doesn't have to be involved in.
To my knowledge, they've been very accommodating, with the outside functions that we've had that they've covered, so
They did the groundbreaking too, at the town park.
been a very good partnership.
And as we have as-needed things, if you all remember in December at the organizational meeting, they came and took headshots of everyone in a group picture. That was of no extra cost. They were already here doing the meeting recording. It was nothing for them to bring a camera and do that. And so we have a pretty good relationship with them where we can say, hey, we've got this going on. And they very rarely are not able to make it.
Yep. Okay, any additional questions or comments? Move along to the next item, please.
I will add, that when I started here, they only had 2 channels. And they have, recently, like in the last, I want to say maybe it was last year, they added a 3rd channel. And those, the amount has gone down, gradually gone down every year since I've been here. So it's not going in the other direction. So any yearly figure that is paid to us quarterly, it's dwindling down, yes.
And that's certainly, because, the number of cable customers is decreasing because customers are getting services through other venues. And so that's part of that.
And it's set by the state.
Yeah.
The Department of Revenue is the one that does the distribution.
But this is East Wake TV is really a unique model, and it's really beneficial to the member governments. Each town or government gets a equal share of the pie. The town of Archer Lodge gets the same size of pie as the city of Charlotte.
Wow.
And so by combining pie pieces, we get a larger chunk of the pie. And so that's why East Wake TV, PEG Media Partners can be self-sustaining, is because they're collectively getting more pieces of the pie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've had a request for information on the amount of comp time that staff has been earning, and as well as the cost associated and the vendors associated with contracted services throughout all the departments. So I'm going to start with, and I'm presuming it's for budget reasons. So I'm going to start with the comp time report that our payroll software generated. And as you can see, the dates are from July the 1st of 2024 through the current date that I ran this report of April 1, 26. I will say, before I get into the actual figures, starting January, the IRS changed a ruling that the amount of overtime, the actual portion of time and a half, the half part, is not taxable. So our non-exempt employees are now getting paid. They're not doing comp time anymore. If they work over 40 hours a week, they get paid time and a half because it has to appear on their W-2s. That overtime has to appear as non-taxable income. This past year for 2025, I had to figure it manually. So that, like I said, that just started January of this year. So the non-exempt employees no longer get comp time. They are getting paid straight out overtime, time and a half. Okay? Now I'll go back to these numbers that the comp time is figured at time and a half, or was figured at time and a half for non-exempt employees. Exempt employees, based on personnel policy, is hour by hour. Any hours over 40 hours. You earn comp time hour per hour. So, in looking at this, where I've got it highlighted as paid hours from this time range of July 1 of 24 to April the 1st, you're going to see that the Parks and Rec Department are the ones that were paid out comp time. In other words, they earned it. They earned it in a 2-week period. And let's just say the next 2-week period, one of them had a doctor's appointment. That's probably not good because they could use sick leave. But if you have comp time, personnel policy says you have to use vacation. I mean, you have to use your comp time first before you can use your vacation time. So when an employee, let's say they come in and worked 8 hours and had to go 2 hours they didn't fulfill the full 10-hour workday, so they would sign out 2 hours of their comp time. So when they signed out and they were paid for that 2 hours, that is what the paid hours refers to. It's the actual hours that they were not here at town hall working that they had earned in a prior pay period and were paid out for that amount of time that they took. So as you can see, Chris, during that July 1 of 24 to April 1, he has been paid out 208 hours. And you'll see the salary that he got for that paid time out. As well as myself, I was paid out 63 and a half hours and the salary associated with that. And then you've got a former town administrator, as well as your Parks and Rec maintenance people, as well as town clerk, planner, and even prior to Joyce retiring, she was paid out 20.4 hours as well. And then Jenny, being the town clerk HRA during her tenure here, any hours worked over 40, they earn comp time, and they get paid out hour per hour for that. So before I go to anything else, anybody have any questions regarding that information?
I've got one, because you're saying every hour over 40, they're taking hour for hour comp time.
Exempt,
Right, salaried employees.
that's correct.
But if I read the personnel policy, it's talking about exempt employees. These employees may be granted occasional compensatory leave. So, I mean, I don't read the personnel policy allowing it hour for hour.
Okay, I'll let Marcus speak on that, because he has kind of talked about that today. David got clarification on comp time for exempt employees, and based on the ruling by our personnel policy in place.
And with that, and I'm kind of going to defer back to Kim, because I'm not sure paying-wise, payroll or anything like that. If a person earns comp time, they aren't necessarily paid comp time unless they take it. So it's to supplement missed hours. So instead of taking vacation time that they would be paid for, they have to take the accrued comp time first. So they earn hour per hour. Now, it's not, you worked 42 hours this week, you only have to work 38 hours next week. It is, I have a doctor's appointment this week in Raleigh, and I'm going to be gone for 2.5 hours. I worked 42 hours last week. The first 2 hours of that comes from comp time, and I'm paid hour for hour. And then the other half an hour would be sick leave or vacation time. So it's not, just because you accrue comp time doesn't mean you're automatically getting paid the comp time. It's to supplement when an employee's hourly or weekly hours are under the 40.
I
That's
I
correct.
understand that
Yeah.
part, but to me, it's when should it be accrued? Because if,
Any time over 40 hours.
Yeah.
The salary?
that's not what the personnel policy says, because it basically says, are paid on a salary basis and will not receive pay for hours worked in excess of the normal hours, and the employees may be granted occasional compensatory leave.
That's the time off. So you accrue it regardless. It's just, you may be granted the ability to use it. And it's, hey, I need to go to the doctor, or my son has a field trip, but I'd like to be gone for 4 hours on Tuesday to help chaperone that. And no, we really need you here, so we're not going to grant you. So they may be granted, but they may not be granted, but the comp time accrues.
Where does it say it's accrued on an hour-by-hour basis? Is that some sort of law? Because
Yes.
I don't see that in here.
That's
It's
IRS.
federal, it's federal law.
Yeah.
Every salary job I've had except one, we worked however many hours it took. We didn't get comp time, we didn't
And
get time
that's-
off. I mean, it was,
Sure.
you were salaried, you got paid $100,000 a year, no matter how many hours you worked.
Sure. And that's company policy or state policy or whatever. Our personnel policy does allow the potential of being granted comp time if you work out over. So-
I'd like somebody to point out to me where it says that. Because I don't
Well,
see that in
since I've been
there.
here since 2015, that's been the set rule. I mean, CL did it when he was here. Mike did it when he was town administrator, and Brian continued to do that. So it's just been a set rule that you earn the comp time.
I'm just asking, where is it in the personnel manual that allows it?
Well, I can't find the exact wording that says non-exempt employees earn comp time. But what I do see is that it says non-exempt employees with comp time. So if that says with comp time,
I'm talking exempt employees.
excuse me. If it references comp time, then in order to be granted occasional comp leave, then you've had to earn it somehow.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things for me that I'm having an issue is there's, for some folks, it's a lot.
That's
in-
correct.
In my opinion. And if they're getting that much, then there might be something else that we need to do. And I appreciate the job that Chris is doing, but if Chris is earning that much comp time,
They need another person.
maybe we need another person.
And staff brought that to council at one of the budgets, I think it was last year's, and we were denied another position in Parks and
Well,
Rec. And so we talked about comp
So
time at that time.
what I'm gonna say at this particular point, there's some things that have occurred. There are some things that have occurred in the past, and not for me personally. If Chris has has accrued that 182, then that's what he's got. I'm not saying that we need to take any of that away from him, nothing like that. I don't even know if we're allowed to, but I wouldn't say we could even if we were allowed to. But from this point, there's some things that I think that maybe we need, that we need to fix.
And maybe some duties can be delegated down to other people.
It could be that.
I mean, I think that's something that needs to be looked at hand
And
in
that may
hand
be
with what
looking
you're
at
saying.
different, or doing people's job descriptions differently if you're putting
It
additional
could be,
duties on
but
other
it's things I think
people.
we need to, it's things I think we
Which-
need to fix.
Which that was another reason why Becky would have been a perfect person to assist with job descriptions and any updates, and that's what she's gonna be doing with the personnel policy. So I highly recommend if you've got any changes to what's currently, I would get them to Cynthia, who is communicating with her about the personnel policy. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could.
Can you get to the microphone?
Councilmember Bruton, to answer your question, where does it say that it does or it doesn't? It's not going to say that. I can tell you that typically, if there is no compensation for the exempt, it says that. When it allows it, then it's allowing. It's not going to say that you can't. What I would suggest, if that is an issue, is that you say it has to be approved. Make that some type of policy, and any stipulations that you want on it. But when you allow it, then you're saying it's okay, but you're only going to earn it at a different rate than the non-exempt. But typically, when it's, if you say you can, then you can. If there are concerns, then you need to address the concerns. And I would
So we
suggest
could
not
say that it could be
banking them.
approved. It would have to be approved prior to
Yes,
taking.
that you would get prior approval. Now, obviously, there may be some emergency situations and you can't get immediate approval, so you should have an understanding. And most of the time, I mean, department heads are going to know this. Typically, your exempt employees are the employees that are well aware of what is permissible and what is not under certain circumstances. That's fine.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any more questions about the amount that's been paid out? Okay, hopefully I've explained some of what the accrued means. And like I said, starting January 1, the non-exempt no longer accrues comp time at time and a half. So they are paid straight out, so now you're gonna start seeing, overtime amounts in the overtime line item, because we have it broke down to like salaries, and then you've got an overtime line item too. So you're gonna start seeing figures in the overtime, and it's because of the IRS law that was passed, I think, in October. And whereas on this particular one, it's showing the amount, of course, like Joyce is retired, Jenny's no longer here. If they did not use their comp time before leaving, they lose it. They don't get paid out for it. That's, if you're an exempt, non-exempt, it doesn't matter. If you've got comp time on the books and it's not used, you do not get paid out for that comp time. It's just a loss. Okay, that's all I have about this, other than the second page shows the departments. It was asked kind of which department accrues more, uses more, and it's clearly, it's the Parks and Rec Department. And there is 3 full-time people there, and currently 3 part-time people. And 2 more have been interviewed. I don't think no decision's been finalized on that. Any questions about the next page? Okay, so the next item that was asked was about contracted services. And of course, we're in the middle of this fiscal year. I mean, we're getting closer to the end, but so I ran the reports, or I had Lindsay run those finance reports for the prior year, which actually shows a true amount spent because that year has been closed out, the audit's been completed, and then where we are at currently. And it is listed for all of the departments, which consist of the governing body, administration, public buildings, and grounds. I mean, that all goes together, public buildings and grounds. Video programming, that revenue item and the expenditure is going to be the same figure. It is what it is from the state. The public safety consists of, that's broken out. It's not under just the code 3500. It's broken out, and this amount goes to Northside Fire and Rescue. This amount is designated for the law enforcement, and then this amount is designated to go to animal control. So they got 3 lines in their department. Then we have public works, transportation, that's anything with sidewalks, road signs, banners. Of course, we're responsible for the sidewalks, so any repairs has got to be done, and we will be responsible for the new ones that are going to be installed on Covered Bridge Road during that widening project up to the stoplight. Planning and zoning, and then Parks and Rec. So, and they're very detailed reports. So is there anything that I can answer, or it's just informational purposes?
So I have a question. Chris may be able to answer this a little bit better. I guess more direct toward Parks and Rec. But do you feel that with the contract services that you're currently using, you're able to meet everything that you need done?
When you say contract services, are you talking about just the money that I receive in my contract service line item, or actual companies that I'm using?
I guess the companies you're using to get the things done that you can't or don't have the time to do.
We really don't have any contract services that we're using where we don't have, like, it's more for programs and services that we're using contract services for. It's not where we're contracting out our work.
Your
Like the
instructors,
umpires and-
anything like camps, it's instructors, umpires,
Yeah,
are they
umpires,
paid
yeah, booking
for all
agents
for the
and
booking
kinda like
agents?
instructors for classes, but outside of that, everything else is taken care of in-house.
So getting the grass cut, soil samples, spraying the chemicals, you were able to meet all that?
Yeah, we're doing that in-house, except soil sample. We don't, of course,
Now
as
that-
far as spraying and cutting grass, we're taking care of all of that.
Anything with the grounds is going to come out of public buildings and maintenance, not out of Parks and Rec.
Okay.
But we have had some turf maintenance and establishment, from others at different points in time, haven't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In the past we have, but now since we're our spreader actually is working, Blake and Marcus have that knowledge that we're spraying everything in house, we're buying chemicals, so we don't have to contract that out. And then as far as the fertilizing and things like that, Marcus and Blake they have the knowledge and skill set to do that.
Now, I do know for a fact, Mike reached out to someone that had a bush hog y'all heard us talking about the wildflower area? Well, it had overgrown to overhead and it needed to be bush, of course, we don't have a bush hog. So that got done.
Yeah, it was the same company that we used previously for the western parcel, before we actually got it graded and asphalt down, and we just kind of let the grass grow a little bit, so.
It was pretty tall to start with, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. But it was a company that we had used before.
Right, but typically, I'll put, exactly what the contracted services, who the vendors are. And like in Parks and Rec, if it's for, instructors or camps or whatever, I'll list it. Anything dealing with programs has come out another line item. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Let's move along to item number 3I. Mr. David?
Mayor and Council, as you're aware, at the April 6th council meeting and at the request of Councilmember Davis, Human Resource Officer Cynthia Richardson Blake provided an overview of the town's current organizational structure, detailing both full-time and part-time positions while highlighting existing vacancies. During the councilmember comments at that meeting, Councilmember Jackson requested that staffing pattern discussions be included in tonight's work session agenda. So for background information, we've got some information in the agenda packet, which includes an organizational chart, selected job descriptions. So I know there's been some discussion in the past about the HR officer position. So I've got some additional information in the packet about the key benefits of an HR professional. Be happy to detail those. Just in short, some of the benefits of the HR professional include compliance with employment laws and risk mitigation, hiring and keeping top talent, managing the employee performance review process, maintaining employee certification and continuing education records, streamlining operations, positive company culture, leveraging HR expertise, and serving as a confidential resource for employees. Also, just want to provide some additional information about part-time employees. So, we have several part-time employees, which, is a good benefit for the town for a variety of reasons. First of all, they're cost efficient because we can reduce expenditures on compensation and employee benefits. Part-time employees don't receive the same level of benefits. There's operational flexibility. There's enhanced recruitment and retention. There's opportunity for specialized skill acquisition and improved service delivery. And it's opportunity for screening for full-time roles. So oftentimes part-time positions serve as an effective mechanism for developing full-time positions down the road. So minimizing hiring risk. So, I know there's been some conversations about staff reductions that might provide cost savings. There are also reductions in staff may cause additional impacts such as negative impacts to staff morale, loss of proficiency, expertise, and knowledge, increased opportunity costs and delays in processes, impacts of employee trust, increased liability, reduced efficiency and coverage, transfer of costs to other positions to pick up additional duties for which additional compensation may be warranted, reduced flexibility for impacted employees, potential impact to employee satisfaction and turnover, and if turnover does increase, the town could potentially incur additional costs for short-term interim solutions and may pay more in the long run for alternative staffing as well as lost efficiency. So at tonight's meeting, just ask, as council requested, to bring this back up for discussion. Council's asked to receive the information and provide any any feedback that you may have. And so we've got additionally some additional attachments that include job descriptions for certain positions, as well as list of daily duties and weekly duties and monthly duties for those as well. So what questions, comments do you have?
And before council goes, really quick, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind,
Go right ahead.
I wanted to address something kind of, you have job descriptions in here, David, and something that was brought up at the last meeting was the role of the part-time HR officer, how it wasn't approved by council and may have been created by a prior town administrator. And looking back, and I don't have the minutes, I didn't go through the minutes of all the meetings like Cynthia did for this chart that we have. But when Jenny was hired, and you have the job description of Human Resources Officer and Town Clerk, she held both positions. When she left and we hired Ben as Town Clerk, we only hired him as Town Clerk. And we had a separate job description of just Town Clerk. Because prior to Jenny, when Kim was Town Clerk, it was Town Clerk, Finance Officer. When Kim split off as Finance Officer, Jenny came on, it was HR Officer, Town Clerk. And then with Ben, it was just Town Clerk. So of the three positions, we had Finance Officer filled, we had Town Clerk filled. The part-time HR officer that had been approved by the town was kind of left sitting empty, and that's when Cynthia came on. So it wasn't a job that was created just for Cynthia, it was one that had been created before that got taken away from the town clerk's position and just hadn't been filled. So it wasn't a separate job description, it was built into the one that's in your packet here. And so that's kind of where that came from. So it wasn't just created out of the blue, it was one that was left empty and vacant when Jenny left. Because we didn't fill it with Ben, because he was just filling from interim town clerk to full-time town clerk and did not have the HR officer attached to his job description. So that's where that came from. So looking at that, we did have one because Jenny was it. And then we didn't have one, and then that's when Cynthia was hired to fill that part-time position that Jenny held. So I just wanted to, when we're looking at this, kind of, it was a position, it just wasn't its own until Jenny left.
Well, I remember during a session when we were talking about converting Ben from deputy clerk to town clerk, I asked the question, what was going to happen with the HR duties? And that was when we were in the process of hiring a town administrator. And we were told that it could be that the town administrator would have that experience to be able to take on those duties. So there was never discussion with the council about hiring a separate HR person. And I know before Jenny left, she was trying to get us to approve a separate HR job description, which we never did, in order to be able to separate those. So if we had to approve a separate town clerk job description to make it just town clerk, why wouldn't we have to approve a separate HR job description to hire just an HR person?
And what Jenny was trying to get was an HR director, where it was a full-time position along, so you'd have a full-time town clerk and a full-time HR director. And that's what she was pushing for. And that one was not approved. That one didn't
Right,
get traction.
but before we could make him just town clerk, we had to approve a town clerk job description.
Right.
So why would we have to approve that if you can separate an HR and not have a separate job description?
Because what we had was, we didn't want to give Ben the combined, and we didn't have just town clerk duties to give Ben. So that's why, and the HR duties are kind of left over from what was pulled out of the HR town clerk. So we had a hole, and we cut 3/4 of it out, and now that 3/4 is Ben, and we have the 1/4 left over. So,
But we still had to approve the separation of the town clerk from the town clerk HR.
correct, and what was left over was the HR.
So why wouldn't we have to just approve a separate HR job description before an HR person was hired?
Because the job duties had already been set forth in the combined.
But so had the town clerk. We could have just separated it out. It's the same
We
argument.
did.
Right,
And that's what the whole and the part.
Right, but we were told we had to approve the town clerk job description before we made him just a town clerk. So why you wouldn't have to, if you separate town clerk and you have to approve that job description, how can you separate HR and not approve that job description?
Can I speak on that? My background is not HR. I can tell you, I don't want no part of it. I've been to the public law meetings and courses, and no, thank you, too much liability, and I don't want to be responsible for it. So when it was just Mike and I, town administrator, and Joyce was our deputy clerk, she retired as deputy clerk. Ben was hired as the deputy clerk. He had no clerk experience. He was right out of school. He had no HR experience. He don't have any finance experience. He was hired as deputy clerk. So when Jenny resigned as HRO town clerk, there was nobody that could take interim HRO town clerk position. So he was appointed to be the interim town clerk. That's what he was hired for as clerk duties. He's in the clerk certification class now. Okay, he doesn't have HR background. So that's when Jenny left, Brian, he had the right by his job description to appoint someone to be HRO. And so he interviewed 2 people for that. And it was a part-time position, which is what the town council wanted. They didn't think we needed a full-time HRO person. It didn't require, there wasn't enough things to do here to have a full-time HRO, so we don't have a full-time HRO. We got a part-time, and that's what Jenny was trying to do, a full-time town clerk and a full-time HRO in one duty, wearing 2 hats. So she is only doing the part-time role that Jenny was certified in doing. No one else here is certified for that role.
Well, I guess my concern is the majority of the previous town council did not want, it wasn't part-time, full-time, it was a designated HR person. And we had the majority, and that desire was expressed multiple times, and then we're not notified, we're just given an email that says, we have an HR person.
And, I wasn't here, it was our predecessor. I will mention that, the personnel policy states that also, in addition to job description for town administrator, in the personnel policy, one of the duties of a town administrator is to appoint an HR officer. So.
And Cynthia, nothing against you. I mean, please, I know a lot of this conversation is going around about your role, but it's nothing at all against you personally. So please don't think I'm throwing darts at you. I'm trying to learn from this process that I'm sort of more than a little confused about how we got where we got.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it states in the personnel policy, one of the duties of the town administrator is to appoint an HR officer. And so my predecessor, Mr. Chadwick, was fulfilling the duties that are prescribed by the personnel policy.
But not by the intent of what we were asking for was an additional duty, and not a part-time position, but an additional duty as a HR. And now, I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I really appreciate what you've done, but, and along with what Teresa said is, the process of it wasn't what we were wishing for. We weren't looking, for what we got, and that wasn't the intent of what we were asking for. I think it's the clearest way of saying it, but what we were expecting was HR as an additional duty, not as a separate kind of thing.
And as I said, I wasn't here. I'm not sure when the timeline, overlapped. But obviously, Mr. Chadwick, left employment. I don't know, when he was, looking at that. But, I believe he acted in good faith in the best interest of the town. Maybe if it was not announced at that point, maybe he was at least contemplating that move, and wanted to make sure that there was an experienced professional, HR professional, to look out for the best interest of the town. And so he acted as per the policy to appoint an HRO.
So now my question goes is, where do we go from here? And I don't know that that's directed at you. That's probably more directed at us.
I would just say you're gonna need somebody that is, got some HR experience.
Well, from what, pardon, Clyde, from what I, just heard, from Mr. Bryan and recollecting what was going on, with Mr. David, and recollecting what was going on with Mr. Chadwick, maybe I should use last names. And, but when he was going out, we already had one vacancy. And he knew that we were fixing to have a second vacancy. In my opinion, he was doing us a favor to set us up with someone with that experience, to help fill those vacancies. And it was in his job description to do so. So I agree. I think he was trying to do us a favor and trying to help provide that expertise so we could regain that coverage. I interrupted, I'm sorry.
That's what I was sitting here thinking. And I know they said there's towns that are less people than we are that don't have a HR person at all. But let me tell you, if something was to happen to somebody on these fields or on our properties, and you don't have a HR person that can look after it, that's qualified, I wouldn't even want to be here. And
I will say I'm very thankful that Jenny was here when our current, no, she's not working, but when Heather had the accident in the vehicle, because that immediately became a workman's comp situation. I don't know anything about workman's comp. So, I mean, you got to know more than just advertising a job and getting a job description. I mean, you got to know public law. But, and then she was trying to get safety, and that's part of HR too, is OSHA stuff. And we hadn't even gotten to that, making sure that the park maintenance people, everybody is safe in their roles, because we certainly don't want any kind of liability on the town.
I'm kind of in a position here, but I will say this. Whether it's me or someone else, you are responsible as council members for ensuring that the town is covered in every area. And HR is more than filling out health insurance paperwork and things like that. You are responsible for making sure that you are in compliance with EEOC. And I was going to comment, as Kim just did, in OSHA. if there was to be an inspection, and we are always subject to that, they're going to ask who is doing these duties. And they're going to want to know what type of experience they have because they're going to interview your people. And in the event that something were to happen, you are going to be responsible because you would know that you are held responsible for those things. HR is very wide. It is your benefits, it is recruitment, it is termination, it is disabilities, it is retirement. It is very broad. And so when making your decisions, please understand that you either pay today or you pay tomorrow in the event if something were to happen. Because the role is more than you probably think that it is. And experience, for me, on a part-time, it is juggling, you know, what's more important, putting out fires, so to speak. So, you know, I feel like, and I hesitated in even speaking, simply because one may think that this is about me. I came to Archer Lodge and turned down another position because I had some past experiences here and because of the community. I'm very big on small communities because you get to know the people and you have more of a familiar relationship. And so whether it's me or anyone else, please understand you are obligated by the town and personally. Council members can be held personally for any liabilities should they occur.
I have an inquiry. On page 9 of our personnel, it says new positions shall be established upon recommendation of the town administrator and approved of the town council. New positions shall be recommended to the town council with the recommended class title, after which the HRO, with the approval of the town administrator, shall either allocate the new position into appropriate existing class, and that's just in reference to title. But it says on page 9 that you make recommendations and it's approved by the council. And I don't think that, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, that it's about you personally, like it's been said. I think it was just the establishment of someone in the position without council, like blindsided.
Right. I assure you, when I was offered and accepted the position, I had no idea that this conversation would ever occur.
Right.
Because I came in September and there was no question until recently. And so when I tell you that this is all a surprise to me, it is just that, because it was never insinuated that there was ever any question or you were unaware, and especially when the announcement was made. I'm unaware of the email that you received, obviously, but it wasn't until recent that I realized that there was an issue here. I don't believe this is about my performance.
Not at all.
No.
Because when I promise you, when I come in, I give it my all, and I don't know absolutely everything, but I know of resources, and I know how to pull on those things. So I hear what you're saying, and I rely on Marcus for his advice on whether it was done correctly or not. I can only tell you that it was presented to me as that it was an approved position. There was never any question when the offer was made and sent and signed by both myself and the administrator at that point. And I'm I would have to look, I think, later. This is all a surprise to me that it's a real conversation.
I think there was one week that you were here while he was here, and then he was gone.
He was actually gone when I even got
Oh,
here.
okay. I knew it was really close, I couldn't remember the time.
Mike was in the position as an interim.
Okay.
So my question still remains is what do we do? I think that's ultimately, that's for us up here to figure out. We don't make a decision tonight. We can't make a decision tonight, but what do we think it ought to look like? Maybe we can, I don't know if that's something we want to talk about tonight or not, but I can tell you, I'm tired of this staring me in the face when we have meetings and it interferes with our budget.
I thought the motion, so go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I thought the motion from Davis kind of squashed that, and the reading from page 9 kind of resolves that going forward, that will not occur. And anything else can occur during budget talks, so point of question again.
I'd like to see it just continue this conversation going forward with the budget. And we'll move on.
Yeah, because there's some good information in this memo that I'd like to digest a little bit better.
Okay.
All right, moving along to item 3J.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I know it's been a lot of discussion tonight, but do appreciate the conversation and contemplation. And, I know y'all have tough jobs. We do too. We all are working together for the betterment of the community. And, I appreciate the conversation to try to have clarity and have a good path forward. So thank you for that.
If I may interrupt, too. So if this is going to be budgetary, do you need me here?
Mr. Mayor, I don't.
I wouldn't think so. Thank you.
Could I ask one quick question then? Can we have 5 minutes?
We want to take a quick 5-minute recess.
Or y'all can keep going and I'll go do what I got to do. I won't be back. It won't take me 5 minutes, I guarantee you that.
I don't think we need a lot of detail, but why don't you just take 5 minutes?
Good night, Marcus.
Have a good night, y'all.
But y'all go. I won't
I think I'm gonna take us 5 minutes too.
On as far as continued discussion on the development of the budget for fiscal year 26-27. As you're aware, North Carolina General Statutes direct that the budget, together with the budget message, be submitted to the governing board no later than June 1st. And then on the same day the budget is presented to the governing body, the budget officer shall file a copy in the office of the clerk for public inspection and schedule a public hearing. We've got a little bit of a truncated budget development timetable based on the transition in administration. But we've been moving forward very quickly. So council discussed the budget priorities at the February 16th meeting, budget retreat. The list of budget priorities developed include review of the opportunities to reduce costs, 250th anniversary of the USA, lights for the ball field, speed limit enforcement signs and mobile unit, multi-use parks and recreation facility, looking at other towns and putting together concepts. Some additional items identified for funding consideration: new parkland, fund balance policy goal, cybersecurity training for staff and elected officials, classification and pay study, parks and recreation, funds for sports equipment, resource center library, public safety, needs for Archer Lodge Community Center, resources for seniors. And then at the March 16th budget retreat, council discussed the following items: the Johnson County Fire Commission cost share policy, results of the 26-27 budget survey, the North Carolina Legislative Review of Property Taxes, additional priorities for the town after the fiscal year 26-27 budget, development of fund balance policy, and the budget development calendar. So, there have been a lot of topics that have been discussed. Obviously, it would be a challenge to address all those in 1 year. But we've already addressed several of these in the current year, so that's a good thing. And then we're working together as a team to address as many of these as we can. In your agenda packet, you've also got the historical property tax rate in Archer Lodge. And as you're aware, the current tax rate is 30 cents. 11.5 cents of that is for the fire department, 2 cents is for the park reserves, and then 16.5 cents is for the rest of the town. 1 cent on the tax rate equates to approximately $68,500. So for a home valued at $325,000, the town property bill would be approximately $975. As you're aware, the main revenue sources for the Archer Lodge include the Avalon property taxes, approximately 60.8% of revenue, and then the state sales tax distribution, which is approximately 12.8% of revenue. As you're aware, general statute requires all counties to conduct a revaluation of real property at least once every 8 years. Johnson County's most recent property tax reval was effective July 1st of 2025. The new values were used to calculate tax bills in the summer of 2025. And the goal of the revaluation is to distribute the overall tax burden throughout the county in a way that is fair and equitable to all based on current property tax values. The current Johnson County tax rate is 52 cents per $100 valuation. So tonight's work session includes continued discussion to assist in the development of the recommended budget. We've got additional information for you tonight. And so our assistant town administrator and finance officer, Ms. Kim, has some revenue projections and estimates to prepare. And I'll defer to her on that in a little bit. And then with the approved budget development calendar, we've also got additional dates, May 18th for budget presentation. Prior to that, there's opportunities for additional meetings or discussions about budget. And so after our discussion about revenues, we certainly would like to ask council to consider its preferences as far as discussion of expenses. We know we had a lot on the agenda tonight, and so we would like to, for council to consider if it would like to have an additional meeting to discuss the expense side of the equation prior to the May 18th budget presentation. So, one opportunity could be next week sometime. We've got the regular meeting on May 4th, and then the week after that between the budget meeting, the regular May meeting and the work session where the budget will be presented. So just ask for council's direction as far as having potential additional work session to review draft expenses. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Kim to go over revenues.
Okay, good evening again. In looking at the first page, the way that the budget is set up is that the current year revenues for real property taxes and motor vehicle taxes are separated in a different line item instead of being in the same line item like on the other pages. So the first page, you're going to see zeros wiped all the way to the left because that particular account number is just for that year's property tax, okay? So, and this is figured at the current tax rate right now at 30 cents. We didn't see any need to change that unless directed, and I think that's what he's going to present. I'm not sure. We're still getting the expenditures in place, but we wanted to go ahead and share with you our thoughts now on the revenues. So currently, I will say that the public services more than doubled. Last year, I think it was, the levy was almost close to 4,000. But now the public utilities is like your AT&T, your the utilities that are in the town of Arthur Lodge. So currently we've got the estimated revenues of the real property ad valorem coming in at 1.9 million. The motor vehicle tax we have listed, like I said, this is at the current tax rate at producing 200,000 estimated revenues. And then we'll go ahead and skip over to the next pages, and this is where you're going to see the prior years because it is the same account numbers from one year to the next. Penalties and interest increased that a little bit than what we had estimated in the past, gone up to 3,500, and then the sales tax, the league is projecting sales tax to increase by 3.1% higher. So when we budget, we don't just go up that big amount. We still try to be conservative on our revenues. So you'll see those 5 different articles there and the amounts that we have established there currently going forward. And then the next page shows the unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, and that would be the alcohol beverage. That's a one payment a year that we receive, and the league is projecting a little less than 1% increase in that. And then the franchise taxes, which does consist of the PEG media money, that's where that comes in to play. The electric franchise is going to go up a little less than 1%, 0.85%. They're looking for the telecommunications, as I mentioned earlier. Some of that telecommunications, and I think David mentioned too, is dwindling. I mean, it was at the highest when I first got here, and it's been going down, not drastically, but it has been reducing over the years. ABC in Johnston County, the profits there, we're figuring the same amount. Permits, we are putting less in there, because there's less development. People are starting to, Jason can speak on that, they're wanting to enhance their property or add decks, or I think that's a lot of the majority, or utility buildings or stuff like that. He may have seen one plat this year come in for a subdivision. It's not like it once was, with, getting a lot of developers coming in. The fee in lieu of, I didn't put anything there because the current 2 subdivisions that are still building out, I think they have allowed open space. Instead of paying that fee in lieu of $1,500 per lot. So right now, I do not believe that there is a subdivision geared up for this upcoming year at this time. So we didn't even put that there. But if we had to put that there, that any money collected there would go straight into the Park Reserve Fund. So it would not be spent in the general fund. We would just transfer it out. So now going to the next page, you'll see that the Parks and Recreation fees, we've reduced that a little bit, as well as the rentals. We currently, this was printed out today, so you can see our current actual revenues for the Parks and Rec is close to $70,000. And we still got a little bit more to go. I don't know that we'll make the 75 this year. That is anticipated. And the rentals, I don't know that we'll make the 10,000. We've had right many the past couple of weeks. They go in spurts. I think the warm weather's bringing people out and wanting to rent the pavilion and stuff. So we're not putting as much in either one of those 2 line items. And then the cable TV franchise tax, the league is saying reducing that by 6.75%. So we dropped it just a little bit. And now we'll go to the PEG Media, which I said is the figure that comes from the Department of Revenue. They do the distributions on that, and it's based on per channel. There are 3 channels now. And currently that invoice, we get around $19,000 a quarter, and we've only collected 2 quarters this year. So we're only halfway through. We don't get our 4th quarter until September, but it goes to the previous year. So, but like I said, all that comes in and goes straight to East Wake TV, PEG Media. And then any miscellaneous revenues, typically that is, in the past, it's higher in some levels. It's because we've had some construction going on at the park. So when these vendors pay sales tax, just for example, let's just say J.M. Daniels. They subcontract some stuff out. So when they purchase stuff and it's got sales tax involved with it, they provide me a statement showing the sales tax that was paid to that contractor, but we had to pay J.M. Daniels. So I get to file for a refund of the sales tax money. So if it's over of what we normally have spent in our regular, what the town purchases as sales tax, then any overage in revenues go in this particular line item. So that's why it's been up to like $7,700 one year. It's because there was a lot of construction. We had G&G doing the restaurant. We had the grading going on. So it's just different things. So, but that's why there's only $1,000 here. I don't see, I mean, we've got pickleball getting ready to do construction. But typically, when it's really big construction items, they're just moving dirt, they're grading, and there's no sales tax involved in that. So, but the equipment that Chris would have to have, or the netting, or anything like that, the town would pay sales tax on, but we can get that back. So I've reduced that to $1,000. We do get a little teeny bit of Musco shared revenue. We've already received some from the lights at the ball fields, because people can stream the cameras, and Musco collects that money and gives us a very small percentage. It's not a whole lot, so we did put a little bit of money there. Veterans, we're in charge of the Veterans Memorial, so people come in and pay the bricks. We collect that money, and then any expenses. It just got power washed Friday for the first time, and then so that some of that will go to pay that, as well as the town hall building was power washed. So, and then the flags occasionally, and then the flowers for Memorial Day or Veterans Day, we make sure that they're put out there for those events. Investment earnings, since our grant funds is dwindling down, there's not a whole lot of money there that's in investments, what is, so that's why you're seeing half of what we anticipated this year, but I'm not even sure that we're gonna hit the 40,000 that we have currently anticipated. So we reduced that by half. We're not expecting any transfer from capital reserve fund. We are trying to build that fund back up, so we're not wanting to move any money from that fund to the general fund. The park reserve fund of 52,000 is the last loan payment to the Smith family. That's what's coming in from there. And then the public safety reserve fund, should we get that phone call, would be to fund law enforcement for the first year. So we would be okay for the first year, but that's why it's important that we keep that public safety fund of reserve, because it'll be not just 1 year, it'll be continuous after that. And that is all, and of course, we increased that figure this year. Last year, or the current year that we're in, was 345. We've gone up 15,000, based on the cost of everything now. Vehicles, equipment, salaries, benefits, gas, maintenance on the tires, et cetera, insurance and liability and stuff. So, so we increased that item, and that is the same in revenues as it will be in the public safety department, that figure is. And like I said, we don't make the transfer until we have to. So right now, it's still sitting in the public safety reserve fund. Do y'all have any more questions? Or any questions? Y'all haven't had any questions. Do you have any questions regarding any of the revenues? Okay. That's all I have then.
Mayor and council, I would, the last item that Kim mentioned was the public safety reserve. And I know, when council considered a budget amendment, one of the items that was considered was addition to the public reserve fund. So just in the future, I would encourage council to consider that, because if there's an opportunity to put a little bit more money into that reserve account, that would certainly be fortuitous for the town to consider that. So just wanted to provide that blurb. So without any, if there's no questions about revenues, just ask council for direction on how you'd like to move forward with discussion of draft expense information. Does council wish to establish another work session before the presentation of the budget, or wait until the recommended budget presentation?
I don't think a work session would be wasted time. I think it would be a good opportunity, as long as council can make a date work. We're talking about next week, correct?
What I'd like, though, is to actually get the expenditures before the meeting, so we've got time to look at it, because I think then it'll be more productive. If we get it the night of, I don't think we're going to be able to have as good a discussion as if we have a few days to look at it before we come in here to talk about it.
So obviously, council has suggested or requested in the past that, agenda items be given to council a week ahead of time. If council were to meet, a week from tonight, we don't have that information ready. We're still working on that. So I defer to Kim with that under consideration. Do you have a suggestion for a date to make sure we have ample time to?
I will say that now that I'm getting the tax scrolls more regularly from the county, the last one that I got was April the 15th, which is on here. I was able to get that fixed. So, the next one that will come out probably will not be until the 30th. Not that we've got to wait till then. It's not gonna change drastically. I just like to make sure that you're getting
The most
the
current.
most recent and relevant information. But even from what I had from the first of the month to the 15th, it may have varied like less than $1,000 of the levy. So it really didn't amount for a whole lot in the tax revenues, okay? So, I do have payroll this week as well. So, I mean,
Just being realistic and with the understanding that, the May 4th meeting is going to be the comprehensive plan, which is going to take a good amount of time. So,
would, maybe a week from tomorrow night?
That's the plan board.
Is it y'all are doing y'all did get that settled? Okay. Listen up, my country problem. Well, we could, as he said, we could do Monday night, a week from tonight, but I just won't probably be able to get those I can get you what I've got ready, and that's through, I'm not finished the planning and zoning, that I've done from the governing body to that point. So I can go ahead and email you those, and then when I get the other departments finished, hopefully Wednesday and Thursday this week, I can send those out. I don't know that we'll get to all of them, but we've got to start somewhere.
so
May 11th is too far out? A week after we do the land use?
the only, we've got to, certainly it's
Presenting it
a week
next
later.
week.
So it just depends on how much changes,
We've got to have time to get a presented budget to you. So if we do it on the 11th,
That only gives you
it'd be tight,
5 days.
yeah. So I don't,
Is there a day, I don't know. If it's next week, I'll make it work, but would council be open to a second meeting the week of the 4th? I would be.
And that's Mother's Day weekend, isn't it?
The 10th is Mother's Day.
10th is Mother's Day.
Yeah.
The 10th is, yeah.
I'm open any day next week, if we need to, and would try to make a second date the week of the 4th work.
I can tell you, for me, the week of the 4th, I wouldn't be able to do the 5th. But I could make pretty much any other day work.
I would probably recommend 2 more meetings before the presentation.
Because it's going to be a challenge to get it all in one meeting.
What about the 29th then? And then, say, the 6th, is that what you said on May? Did you say the 5th or 6th?
I can't do the 5th. I could do the 6th. And I could, begrudgingly, I could do both the 29th and the 6th.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it away from Wednesdays if we could, but
Yeah, same.
I would say, email what you can. And, that would be my gut reaction, would email what you can, and we'll, review the rest, that night.
What about the 30th and the 7th? The Thursdays?
I can do both. I can do both of them.
Yeah,
Is that realistic?
I'm available, yeah.
Mayor, how about
Thursday the 30th?
30th, and then if we need a second one, the 7th?
Okay. All right. Council good with the 30th and the 7th? All right, and we have plenty of time to make those advertisements? Okay.
Yes, sir. We only need 48 hours. And I'll get with Councilman Davis tomorrow morning just to make sure
Okay.
both of those dates he's available.
6:30 for both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think stay with the same meeting
I'm
time.
good with it. I just want to make sure.
Okay. Great. Any other questions, concerns? All right. I have a motion to adjourn.
What work session?
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.